The autumn air of Alabama pressed heavy as the prisoner's skeletal fingers gripped his metal mess kit. It was just after 2 in the morning on October 17, 1943, and the mess hall at Camp Aliceville lay quiet around him. Before him sat something he'd nearly forgotten existed. Scrambled eggs still steaming, strips of bacon, white bread thick with real butter, coffee so rich it smelled like luxury itself, swimming with cream and sugar. For 3 grinding years across the African theater, he'd survived on sawdust bread and chicory coffee. He'd watched his body consume itself. Now, staring at this plate, his hands shook. When I was captured, I weighed 128 pounds. After 2 years as an American prisoner of war, I weighed 185. I had gotten so fat you could no longer see my eyes. That 57-pound transformation would repeat itself across America again and again. Thousands of German prisoners would experience the same biological shock. While their comrades freezing on the Russian steppes gnawed frozen horse meat, while Wehrmacht soldiers in German camps received starvation rations, these captured men ate what American soldiers ate, full portions. The Geneva Convention guaranteed it, and America kept that promise with methodical precision. More than 425,000 German prisoners existed in camps scattered across the United States, and they were witnessing something that would crack open their entire worldview. They watched American plenty. They experienced democracy not through speeches, but through full stomachs. When Rommel's army surrendered in Tunisia that May, the medical teams who examined them found something shocking. An elite force reduced to living skeletons. Months of shattered supply lines and desert combat had hollowed them into shadows. The soldiers who'd once represented the Wehrmacht's finest now looked like they belonged in graveyards, not prisoner processing centers. The official Wehrmacht ration, the Verpflegungssatz, promised substantial calories to fighting men. By winter of 1942, those same men received fragments of that promise. Hard bread when they could get it, often crawling with weevils. Mornings brought ersatz coffee made from roasted acorns and artificial sweetener. Midday meant thin portions of tinned meat, horse or mule mostly, stretched with sawdust filler. Evenings brought dehydrated vegetable soup that swelled in the stomach but delivered almost no nutrition. Dr. James Patterson from the Army Medical Corps examined these captured soldiers at the Oran Processing Center in May 1943, and what he documented was physical devastation. Vitamin deficiency diseases, scurvy cases, night blindness from vitamin A starvation, protein deficiency creating strange swellings. Among men who should have been at their physical peak, he found instead the catalogue of malnutrition. Their rescue began the moment they boarded the Liberty ships headed toward America. These vessels, constructed at frantic wartime pace, carried perhaps 30,000 prisoners each month across the Atlantic. The first meal at sea arrived as beef stew thick with potatoes, white bread, butter, coffee with milk. 1 week's African ration appeared on a single tray. Many prisoners vomited from the shock of it. Their bodies simply couldn't manage such richness after months of near starvation. American medical officers watched in stunned silence. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison Matthews observed the prisoners boarding at Oran and later wrote that these men resembled walking cadavers. Hollow cheeks carved into their skulls, ribs pushing through paper-thin skin. Many needed help climbing the gangways, their legs barely supporting them. We had to feed them with extreme care. Their systems couldn't tolerate normal rations. Their bodies needed time to adjust. The Geneva Convention of 1929 was explicit on this point. The food ration of prisoners of war shall be equivalent in quantity and quality to that of depot troops. For America, this wasn't merely compliance with international law. It was strategy. Colonel Edward Davis explained in a September 1943 memo, "Every well-fed German prisoner is potential insurance for American prisoners in German hands." The office of the Provost Marshal General ran this enormous operation with bureaucratic precision, documenting daily caloric intake, rotating menus weekly, conducting medical examinations, recording weight changes. Forms flowed monthly from every camp. Swiss delegates inspected, the Red Cross monitored. Everything moved according to protocol, ensuring compliance. The standard garrison ration guaranteed each prisoner substantial daily portions: meat, bread, potatoes, cheese, butter, milk, coffee, real coffee, not substitutes, in unlimited quantities. Fresh vegetables and fruit rotated through regularly. The caloric total climbed between 3,000 and 4,000 calories daily, with commissary privileges allowing prisoners to purchase additional items with script: cigarettes, chocolate, beer, wine, soft drinks, ice cream. The logistics required were staggering. Camp quartermasters requisitioned food for thousands daily, coordinating with regional suppliers, managing refrigerated storage, keeping kitchens operating around the clock. The scale exceeded anything the German military had ever attempted. They fed their enemies better than their own troops ate at home. One prisoner would become the most documented case. When I was captured, I weighed 128 pounds. After 2 years as an American prisoner of war, I weighed 185. I had gotten so fat you could no longer see my eyes. This testimony came from Gail Gatner, a sergeant in Rommel's Africa Corps, captured in Tunisia in 1943. He'd later escaped from Camp Deming, New Mexico, in September 1945, living under the assumed name Dennis Wiles for 4 decades before surrendering in 1985. In his memoir, co-authored with historian Arnold Kramer, Gatner described how the German prisoners stood amazed at their treatment. They felt almost coddled by the abundant meals, luxuries their own country couldn't provide, even to its soldiers. Military chaplain Alex Funker, held at Camp Algona in Iowa, wrote afterward, "We all were positively impressed by the United States, and we all had been won over to friendly relations with the country." His research after the war uncovered widespread substantial weight gains, with many prisoners packing on 40 to 60 pounds during captivity. The physical transformations proved so dramatic that officers processing returning prisoners for repatriation struggled with recognition. Captain William Burke, handling these men in 1946, reported, "These men departed looking like professional athletes or successful businessmen, not defeated soldiers. Their families had braced for skeletons. Instead, they received men who looked prosperous, healthy, almost well-fed." Camp Concordia in Kansas held approximately 4,000 German prisoners across hundreds of buildings spread across 640 acres. The installation established extensive educational programs with hundreds of course options. Partnering with regional universities, multiple kitchens fed thousands daily, equipped with electric ranges, walk-in refrigerators, industrial mixers, mechanical dishwashers, technology many prisoners had never encountered. The entire infrastructure spoke to American organizational capacity. Built in just 90 days, it featured electric lighting throughout, hot water systems, flush toilets, central heating. Prisoners from rural Germany, accustomed to outhouses and oil lamps, found themselves living with luxuries unavailable in their homeland. Camp Hearn in Texas earned a local nickname, the Fritz Ritz. It held up to 5,000 prisoners who constructed elaborate recreational facilities. Industrial kitchens operated constantly, with central bakeries producing thousands of loaves daily. Prisoners established regional mess halls serving different German cuisines, using American ingredients to recreate homeland dishes that wartime scarcity had made impossible. The commanding officer, Colonel Donald Drake, implemented what he termed calories for cooperation. Well-behaved prisoners received extra rations, access to special meals, and enhanced commissary privileges. The result was minimal discipline problems and maximum weight gains. Drake's reports documented average gains of 45 pounds per prisoner over 18 months. Camp Aliceville in Alabama processed the human remnants of desert warfare with systematic efficiency. When skeletal arrivals appeared, commanders implemented carefully graduated feeding protocols. The camp's medical staff documented remarkable recoveries. Vitamin deficiencies eliminated, dental problems treated, energy restored. Within months, gaunt faces filled out. Chronic diseases vanished. Major Robert Harrison, the camp's medical officer, published a post-war study documenting recovery patterns with scientific detail. His data showed exponential weight gain in the first 3 months, followed by steady increases averaging 2 to 3 pounds monthly. The most striking case he recorded involved a prisoner who arrived weighing 109 pounds and departed at 181, a gain of 72 pounds. Camp Papago Park in Arizona housed naval personnel who didn't require work assignments. They spent their days in leisure, watching movies, reading, maintaining gardens. The camp became notorious for the December 1944 escape attempt when 25 U-boat officers tunneled out, planning to float down the Salt River to Mexico. They discovered the river was dry. All were recaptured quickly. Several surrendered when they realized the desert offered less sustenance than camp kitchens. The disparity between prisoner treatment and civilian rationing created fierce public controversy. While German prisoners enjoyed military rations, American families navigated complex point systems and genuine scarcity. Sugar, coffee, meat, butter, all restricted for civilians, while prisoners received them daily without limitation. Dorothy Mitchell of Tupelo wrote to her congressman in 1944, "My 3 sons fight in Europe while German prisoners here eat steak twice weekly. I haven't seen steak since Pearl Harbor. My family's monthly meat ration is less than these Nazis eat in 3 days. How do you explain this to a mother?" The government's response emphasized reciprocity. Propaganda posters proclaimed, "Their good treatment ensures ours." Radio broadcasts stressed that 90,000 American prisoners depended on German compliance with Geneva standards. Yet public resentment simmered, especially when prisoners worked local farms and ate better than the farmers employing them. The racial dimensions proved particularly inflammatory. Black American soldiers, including Rupert Trimmingham, noted with bitter anger that German prisoners could enter restaurants where they were prohibited. Trimmingham's famous letter to Yank magazine described watching German POWs served at a Texas restaurant while he, wearing his uniform and combat ribbons, was directed to the kitchen door for takeout. Enemy soldiers receiving better treatment than American citizens defending their country created wounds that didn't heal. German prisoners themselves often expressed discomfort, recognizing the injustice even while benefiting. Several camp newspapers run by prisoners published editorials questioning American segregation, creating the peculiar situation of Nazi soldiers critiquing American racial policies. The prisoner labor program proved crucial to American agriculture while contributing significantly to prison weight gain. By 1944, over 300,000 prisoners worked American fields, harvesting crops that would feed America and its allies. The program generated millions in revenue while providing prisoners with supplemental nutrition beyond standard rations. Farmers desperate for workers competed to treat prisoner work crews well. Morning meant farm breakfasts, eggs, bacon, pancakes, coffee. Noon brought hot meals delivered to the fields, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetable pie. Afternoons included cold drinks and snacks. Evening returned them to camp for another full meal. Combined daily intake often exceeded 5,000 calories. In Nebraska's sugar beet fields, prisoners witnessed mechanization that redefined their understanding of agriculture. Hans Dietrich, working near Scotts Bluff, wrote, "One American farmer with machines accomplishes what required our entire village. The combine harvester processes more grain in an hour than we managed in a week by hand." Texas cotton operations employed thousands of prisoners during harvest season. The work proved grueling under blazing sun, but compensation included unlimited water, regular meal breaks, and bonus food for high producers. Wilhelm Hartmann, picking cotton near Kaufman, gained 63 pounds in 14 months. "The Texas farmers fed us like prize cattle," he wrote. "One rancher told me, 'Can't get good work from hungry men.' If only our officers had understood this." California's Central Valley presented an ultimate irony. Prisoners picked peaches, apricots, and oranges, eating freely while working. They watched perfectly good fruit bulldozed into pits when markets overflowed. Kurt Vogel wrote, "Mountains of oranges destroyed while my family survives on turnips. I begged to send them to Germany. The farmer explained it was economically impossible. This waste amid plenty broke something in my understanding of the world." Military medical officers tracked biological changes with scientific precision. Major Thomas Richardson, Chief Medical Officer for the 8th Service Command, compiled statistics from 50,000 examinations between 1943 and 1946. His data revealed patterns that would later influence post-war nutrition science. The recovery trajectory followed predictable phases. First month brought digestive system adjustment, minimal weight gain as bodies relearned how to process fats and proteins. Second month delivered rapid increases, averaging 8 to 10 pounds as systems normalized. Months 3 through 6 produced steady gains of 3 to 4 pounds monthly. After 6 months, increases slowed but continued, with most prisoners eventually adding 40 to 60 pounds total. Health improvements paralleled weight increases. Vitamin deficiencies disappeared within 90 days. Scurvy cases recovered completely. Night blindness resolved. Dental health improved dramatically after treatment. Over 400,000 procedures were performed on German prisoners, from simple extractions to complex bridge work. Many received better dental care than they'd experienced in their entire lives. German physicians working in camp hospitals documented unexpected complications, conditions emerging from plenty rather than poverty. Dr. Friedrich Hoffmann at Camp Butner noted, "We see diabetes emerging in men who survived on 1,000 calories. High potassium conditions in prisoners who had low blood pressure from malnutrition. Gout from rich foods. These are diseases of prosperity appearing in former prisoners of starvation." The psychological impact paralleled physical transformation. Camp psychiatrists reported widespread guilt about gaining weight while families starved back home. Captain James Murray documented what he termed prosperity trauma, the mental distress of improving health amid homeland suffering. Prisoners expressed shame at their appearance, anxiety about explaining their condition to families, guilt about enjoying abundant meals while Germany collapsed. Christmas 1944 presented the starkest contrast between American plenty and German suffering. While the Battle of the Bulge raged and German civilians received turnip rations, American camps served holiday feasts that exceeded anything prisoners had experienced even before the war. Military archives preserve the camp menus from December 24 and 25, 1944, documenting extraordinary meals that spoke volumes about competing worlds. The tables before them groaned under the weight of abundance. Roasted turkey, each bird averaging 1.5 pounds per man. Glazed ham studded with pineapple rings, mashed potatoes swimming in butter and cream, golden and steaming. Beside these came sweet potato casserole, its surface crisp with brown sugar. Green bean casserole, rich with cream of mushroom. Cranberry sauce, deep crimson and tart. Fresh baked rolls still warm enough to release steam into the cold air. Pies of every conceivable variety. Ice cream. The officers received eggnog. Coffee and cocoa flowed without limit. But the real miracle came from beyond the camp gates. Churches and civic organizations had contributed far beyond what official rations could provide. The Methodist women of Hearne, Texas had delivered 2,000 homemade cookies to Camp Hearne. The Concordia Lutheran congregation had hand-knitted scarves for every single prisoner. Communities struggling under rationing themselves had found ways to share their own precious allocations with enemy prisoners. This expression of American generosity left the prisoners bewildered. Richard Steinberg, a prisoner himself, tried to articulate what he witnessed. "We sat before this feast," he wrote, "knowing our families had nothing. Men wept openly, though not from joy. They wept from the crushing weight of it all, the terrible contrast between their abundance and the hunger gripping their homeland. How could they celebrate while Germany starved? How could they refuse this kindness from people they'd been taught to hate? So they ate in silence. Each forkful carried both betrayal and blessing intertwined. The food tasted of contradiction, and yet, despite this extraordinary treatment, despite this impossible generosity, escape attempts remained surprisingly rare. Only 2,222 attempts from 425,000 prisoners, and virtually none succeeded. The escape rate was barely half of 1%, the lowest of any major POW population in modern warfare. The reason was brutally simple. The camps offered better conditions than freedom. The Great Papago escape illustrated this futility perfectly. 25 U-boat officers spent months digging a tunnel 178 feet long, using nothing but spoons, hiding the dirt carefully in the volleyball court they'd persuaded guards to let them construct. Their plan was to float down the Salt River all the way to Mexico. It failed immediately. The river was dry. Within 3 weeks, all 25 men were back in custody. Most surrendered voluntarily once hunger struck them in the desert. Captain Jürgen Wattenberg, the escape's leader, reflected on it decades later. "We were ideological idiots," he admitted. "Inside the camp we had food, shelter, safety, even entertainment. Outside was desert, hostility, and certain recapture. We risked everything to escape from paradise into hell. It made no logical sense whatsoever, only ideological sense, and ideology doesn't fill stomachs." Most prisoners recognized this stark reality. Where would they go? How would they survive? They spoke limited English with German accents, carried no documents or money in a vast foreign country where ordinary citizens had been alerted to watch for escapees. The practical obstacles were simply insurmountable. Worse, escaping meant returning to combat if recaptured. If not recaptured, it meant starvation in the American wilderness. Prisoners assigned to work near factories witnessed something that shattered their entire understanding of industrial capacity. At Campbell's soup facilities, they watched single production lines process more food in an hour than German factories managed in an entire day. Near Detroit's Willow Run plant, they stood amazed as B-24 bombers rolled off assembly lines every 63 minutes, faster than Germany could produce basic training aircraft. The psychological impact was devastating. Otto Kleist, an engineer from Krupp, worked near a steel mill producing 10,000 tons daily. "We finally understood," he reflected. "This wasn't a war between armies, but between industrial systems. They could lose 10 tanks for every one they destroyed and still win. Mathematics made our defeat inevitable, regardless of courage or strategy." Agricultural productivity proved equally staggering. American farms yielded twice the German rates per acre, using a quarter of the labor. Mechanization allowed single farmers to cultivate areas that would require dozens of workers in Germany. Irrigation, fertilization, and hybrid seeds created harvests that seemed miraculous to prisoners from subsistence farms. The waste particularly haunted them. Mountains of potatoes left to rot because of oversupply. Crops burned to maintain prices. Milk poured into sewers when demand dropped. Franz Müller wrote about the horror of it. They destroy food to stabilize markets while Europe starves. Only a nation of unlimited resources could afford such waste. The prisoners finally understood American power, not through their armies or weapons, but through their excess, their ability to waste what others desperately needed. Between 1945 and 1946, ships carried over 370,000 German POWs back to Europe. They departed America having gained collectively millions of pounds, living monuments to American prosperity, sailing toward ruins. The contrast proved tragic on multiple levels. Returning prisoners faced devastated cities, starving families, and deep social tensions. Their healthy appearance marked them as different, as privileged somehow, as if they'd been complicit with the enemy. Families couldn't fathom how they'd gained weight while imprisoned, while Germany starved. Communities resented their obvious prosperity amid universal poverty. The physical reversal happened swiftly and brutally. Military government surveys tracked the deterioration. Former POWs lost 30 to 50 pounds within 6 months of returning home. Bodies built on American rations simply couldn't survive on German scarcity. 1,550 calories daily if they were fortunate, often much less. The American weight disappeared, leaving men who looked older than when captured despite all those months of comfort and care. Heinrich Weber returned to Hamburg weighing 186 pounds, up from 134 at capture. 6 months later, he weighed 138 pounds. "The American body couldn't survive on German rations," he explained. "I gave my food to my children, lived on potato peels and stolen grain. Better to have known hunger continuously than to know fullness and lose it." Beyond the physical nourishment, the camps provided something else entirely: comprehensive education that would reshape post-war Germany. Over 50,000 prisoners enrolled in courses ranging from agriculture to philosophy. Camp Concordia alone offered 300 different subjects, with professors from nearby universities teaching everything from American history to automotive repair. The curriculum deliberately included democratic governance, free market economics, and constitutional law, subjects that had been banned in Nazi Germany. Prisoners studied the Federalist Papers, Adam Smith, John Stuart Mill. They debated governance models, economic systems, and social contracts. The intellectual feeding paralleled the physical nourishment, expanding minds while building bodies. Camp newspapers evolved from propaganda organs into genuine democratic forums. Deruth's Call, circulating to 25,000 prisoners, published debates about Germany's future, about democracy's strengths, about economic reconstruction. Its transformation from Nazi mouthpiece to democratic voice traced the ideological journey of all who read it. Dr. Wilhelm von Braun, teaching physics at Camp Shelby while imprisoned, noted the transformation. "We had better facilities than most German universities," he observed. Laboratory equipment, textbooks, and academic freedom. Jewish professors who'd fled Germany taught alongside us without any hatred whatsoever. This generosity of knowledge, sharing education with enemies, revealed something profound about American confidence in their system. The Special Projects Division's secret re-education program achieved remarkable success, not through indoctrination, but through demonstration. By 1945, 25,000 prisoners had voluntarily enrolled in democracy courses. They studied documents banned in Germany, discussed concepts that would have meant death under Nazi rule. The program succeeded because it relied on evidence rather than propaganda. Prisoners could see democracy functioning daily in the camps around them. They experienced free speech in camp newspapers. They observed racial problems discussed openly in American media. Self-criticism impossible in totalitarian systems. Every pound they gained was tangible proof that democracy produced prosperity. Former Wehrmacht officers who'd sworn oaths to Hitler found themselves planning democratic reconstruction. Colonel Hans von Luck, veteran of Poland, France, and Africa, wrote candidly about his transformation. "We arrived as convinced Nazis. We departed as reluctant Democrats, not through brainwashing, but through observation. Their system worked. Ours had failed. The evidence was in our expanded waistlines." Approximately 5,000 former POWs eventually emigrated to America, becoming citizens of the nation that had once imprisoned them. Thousands more maintained correspondence with American families for decades. These relationships, born in extraordinary circumstances, created unexpected bridges between former enemies. The emigration wasn't simple. Former POWs faced suspicion in Germany as potential American sympathizers and suspicion in America as former enemies. Yet many persevered, drawn by memories of prosperity and possibility. They settled across America. Hans Werker became a physician in Maine. Georg Gartner hid successfully in plain sight for 40 years. Marriage created the strongest bonds. Despite regulations forbidding fraternization, romance developed through correspondence and work programs. Over 1,000 German POWs eventually married American women they'd met during or shortly after captivity. These families embodied reconciliation. Former enemies united through love rather than conquest. The 1985 reunion in Austin drew 500 former prisoners, returning with American-born children and grandchildren. Hans Werker delivered the keynote address. "We came as enemies, left as friends, arrived starving, departed overweight. Every pound gained was a lesson in democracy's productivity. Every meal, a demonstration of freedom's fruits." The POW program's economics defied conventional warfare logic. Costing hundreds of millions, it generated nearly equivalent value in agricultural and industrial labor, essentially self-funding while achieving immeasurable strategic benefits. Each well-fed prisoner became inadvertent testimony to American strength, their expanded bodies proof of American capacity. The program achieved multiple objectives simultaneously. It protected American POWs through reciprocity. Germany treated American prisoners somewhat better than Soviet prisoners, partly due to American treatment of Germans. It alleviated critical labor shortages, with POWs harvesting crops that fed both America and its allies. Most importantly, it transformed enemies into potential allies through demonstration of prosperity. Post-war analysis revealed the program's influence on German reconstruction. Former POWs implemented American agricultural methods, increasing German yields 30% within 5 years. They introduced American management techniques, helping drive the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. Their experience shaped a generation of German leaders oriented toward American partnership rather than Soviet influence. Colonel James Patterson's 1947 analysis concluded elegantly, "We purchased future peace with present food." The collective weight gain, millions of pounds, represented American agricultural surplus converted into political capital that paid dividends throughout the Cold War. The German POWs, who gained 50-plus pounds in American camps, embodied World War II's deepest irony. While their homeland starved, they thrived. While their families scoured for turnips, they chose between dishes. While their comrades died on the Eastern Front, they attended movies and played soccer. This impossible reality, enemies eating better than allies, proved strategically brilliant. Their physical growth testified to a profound truth. America could afford generosity even in total war. Democracy could feed even its enemies. Freedom produced plenty, while tyranny produced poverty. The 57-pound gain documented by one prisoner was replicated thousands of times across the camps, each pound evidence of American agricultural and industrial supremacy. In the final analysis, America's greatest weapon wasn't its armies or its arsenals, but its dinner tables. Tables large enough to feed enemies, generous enough to transform warriors into witnesses, abundant enough to purchase lasting peace through temporary plenty. The German POWs discovered their true enemy wasn't America, but the ideology that had led them to war against such prosperity. Every pound gained was a pound of Nazi ideology lost. Every meal a lesson in democratic productivity. Every full belly testimony to freedom's capacity to create rather than destroy. They returned to Germany heavier in body but lightened in spirit, carrying within their transformed flesh the seeds of reconciliation and the memory of impossible generosity from a nation powerful enough to feed even those who came to destroy it.